Wink Ink Michael. I'm the company man, the numbers guy. Welcome back to the boardroom. It is Wednesday, getting primed up. I hope you've had a great, productive week so far. Hope you've done all of the corporate catalysts, as I like to call them. I hope you were a top producer. Hope you worked on continuous improvement. I hope that you coached somebody up, maybe coach up or coach them out, one of the two. You know, all the corporate slang that we like to use here in the boardroom. Oh, man. Does any of that even work? Who knows? Maybe we ought to go through like a 1-hour coaching seminar, just me and all of you here in the boardroom, but you know, it's your production and all that good stuff. But no, I don't think anybody wants that. But let's get in to what is not necessarily the most popular type of video I do. I think you guys really like the mystery boxes for the most part, because you have affectionately said, and you've given me great feedback in the comments, you're like, man, anybody can go into a place and pick up a bunch of keys. That's no fun. It's better when you spend $1,000 and lose. I agree. Now, I don't disagree with you, but this one, you know, it's kind of like my first, I don't want to say it was a first, because I've been able to kind of pick up some collections and share those with you, where I just really kind of picked through what I wanted. So I didn't really buy like a bulk giant collection. But hopefully I can. I'm really looking for some collections where I can pick some stuff up. But in the meantime, you know, I went to a show. We actually had a show kind of in my area here, and I kind of stumbled upon it, got lucky. So I was like, man, and this is the first time I was able to actually go through the contents of this show, had a few vendors in there, and find some stuff. So I was really excited to do that. Now, my approach to these is probably, I don't know if it's different than what people do or not. Now, what I try to do, and this is full transparency, and this is coming from a rookie, you know, what is still considered to be a new collector, I think. So my approach is pretty simple. Like, I go in there with cash, and then that's when I try to, you know, not necessarily beat them down, but to negotiate a little better, to say, hey, with cash, can you knock this off of this, or will you build me a bundle deal, you know, and do it that way, where I can kind of go through the wall, because I don't think I've ever paid sticker price on much of that stuff, but I also try to do it with tact and respect as well. I mean, you know, it's hard to tell somebody when to find the opportunity, right? When to try to negotiate and have that conversation and try to land your points at the appropriate times within that conversation. It's an art form almost, but you know, I don't know. I mean, that was kind of my approach, and I'd love to hear from people that do go to conventions and shows all the time, that do work these deals out with vendors and people selling books, to see kind of how they go about doing it, what the pricing expectation is, and just, you know, their experience. It's something I'd love to hear, because I kind of had my approach. I felt like it worked really well for me, because I was able to go in with cash and kind of negotiate a little harder and to have them move some things. But this isn't a major, huge pickup or anything like that, but something I wanted to share with you nonetheless. And kind of go through some of the stuff that I believe in as far as these books go, and kind of go from there. So what we're going to call this is going to be a $500, I don't know, we'll maybe title it like First Comic Show Pickup Video. I'm not sure, but we'll find an appropriate title and get it up there. Now, you saw the thumbnail of a little bit what I was talking about, but we don't have a lot of books here. But I want to show you guys what this kind of looked like for me and why I believe in some of these characters. So first up, we'll get into this. Batman 655, first Damian Wayne, and then 656. I want to say cameo, first full. And I think it's not until 666 is when he dons the Batman suit. So that was kind of first Damian Wayne as Batman, which I didn't get at this show, but I was able to snag these for pretty cheap. These are both near mint copies. This is a character that I believe in quite a bit. I mean, when it comes to generational things, I mean, we've kind of seen this in Marvel before. So these keys are relatively cheap to grab. They're not bad to get. They've gone up a little bit, but not too much. Just as the market has gone up or inflated, you know, the tide rises, so has everything else. And these have kind of been a proponent for that. You know, there's not really any other reason why. But this could have a long-term value. And the reason being is I think that DC right now would be a good time to invest in DC keys, and maybe not go overboard, or maybe do, you know, depending on your situation. Everybody's different, but with Discovery picking up the DC property, I really, really strongly believe in Discovery, and I think that it could be the injection creatively and financially that DC needs to really get its gloves on and get in the boxing ring on the movie train and show train. Now, I do think that some of the shows are really well done. DC does animation better than anybody. But, I mean, and I love Titans. Some of the live action stuff is pretty good, and I know I'm in the minority on that, but I really think they have the potential to be a juggernaut in the movie arena, and I think that Discovery may lend them that opportunity. Discovery has got super deep pockets, deeper pockets than probably most realize. They know how to build a very, very engaging and successful product. Here's an example. Nobody watched food, people cooking food, people eating food. Now Food Network is one of the most popular television channels on cable syndication. I mean, it's huge. And then you look at something like, what really is encouraging, like I take Shark Week as a good example. And it's like, man, company man, how can you compare sharks and DC? What are you doing? Well, hear me out on this, because Shark Week wasn't what it is now many, many years ago. What Discovery realized was, wow, man, guys, really, man, you people really love watching, shark documentaries. You're into sharks. So what did they do? They built a brand out of it. They built an entity out of it. They said, man, hell, we're going to make Shark Week. And then it's turned into kind of like Shark Month at this point. And they've got mega stars diving in cages to go down there with sharks because people are interested in them. And what that tells me about DC is they listen. They really, really do a great job of gathering information and getting feedback. And I think that's a very encouraging sign as it pertains to DC and what maybe they'll let happen. So I would say keep your fingers crossed if you're a DC fan. Maybe a good time to pick up some of these cheaper keys because you never know when they could detonate. These are definitely not short-term pops. These are longer-term speculation things, but still. Now this next one, it's funny because I just segue right into this one that there's no speculation around and there probably never will be, but for some reason, I just can't stay away from this book. And it's not a tremendously good book. It was a very short run. But it is a little OMAC #1. It is a little of that old goodness there. One-man Army Corps, first appearance and origin. He is a terrible looking character, but nonetheless, this book is interesting to me. This is a really nice high-grade copy. It's interesting because the pricing on this is all over the place from what I've seen. I mean, you can find these for 10 or 15 bucks. Sometimes they're like 70. It's hard to know, and they're all over the place, and the grading, the condition doesn't seem to matter. It just really seems to find, if you find somebody that doesn't really either A, know what it is, or A, care what it, or B, care what it is, because I was able to snag this one, and I just keep getting them. I don't know why. Maybe I'll get lucky in Discovery. How about a little one-man Army Corps? How about that? Let's put that thing in theaters. Because Company Man has got a ton of them. But it's a book I just pick up all the time. Not a super mega awesome spec or anything like that. But still, I really like that book. Next up here, I've got 2 copies of this one. And I always buy them. And again, this is a tricky one. It's Spawn 1. These are both near mint. I would say they're very high grade. One is a candidate for sure, one is not. But I always pick these up when I see them, if they're reasonably priced and if I can work a deal on them. I've got quite a few copies of it. I'll sell some of them on my whatnot every now and then. I'll put one on just to kind of keep them and get them out in the community. And if I need to free up something to buy something else. You guys know how the collector circle is. We're all in it. Either way, we all try to pick stuff up and move it and sacrifice. I mean, that's kind of part of the gig, but I always pick these up. And Spawn definitely had a run-up when the Spawn universe got announced. Spawn 1, these little books started to rise a little bit, but then they've kind of planed off and kind of recapped. And I know some people think that we've seen the peak of Spawn. I don't think that's the case at all. I think if there actually becomes a really big blockbuster AAA movie, which I think could come. I don't think that there's any reason to believe that there's not going to be another Spawn movie. I think you're going to have a lot more potential on these. These are going to see another big run-up. And I think that's really what I'm into. I mean, if you can snag them for 20 bucks, why not? To get a key like Spawn. I'm not even a Spawn fan, but in a way, it's like, man, this is a book that I feel like everybody should at least have one in their collection. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, 2 copies of Spawn. Now, this next one kind of builds on the Spawn thing. And really, I got this because I hadn't really seen one. But we got Spawn #2, first Violator. We got it in a newsstand. That's a high-grade copy, a really nice copy in a newsstand. Obviously I have a few issues of Spawn 2, but I don't have a newsstand version. Not sure if this is going to be a keep or if I'll move it. I was able to work a good deal on it, but I may bundle it together with a Spawn 1 or something like that. But I thought it was really cool to see a Spawn 2 in a newsstand. I was like, man, but Spawn 1 in a high-grade newsstand is a very expensive book. So now we're getting into kind of the crux of it here. We got 5 more books. Now, this makes up a bulk of the value for sure. So next up here, we got Uncanny XMen 221. This is a super high-grade copy. I would almost call this a candidate with a press. First Mr. Sinister. It's another character. It's interesting. You know, I don't know how much further this book can go. Maybe at peak, you know, maybe if we see a live adaptation of Mr. Sinister, that could push it a little further, because all we've gotten so far is animated versions. But still, I love this villain. I love this character. This book, I have noticed, has started to creep up in Raw especially. It's definitely started to creep up. What I've kind of noticed is that as CGC gets further and further out with grading, I want to say at the time of this video, they're like 140 days. I've noticed that shops and people are pricing the books a little closer. They're closing the gap on the raws versus grades, which is not good to see, you know, especially as a buyer. I understand why they're doing it though, but I've noticed that gap is starting to close. It used to be where you could get a key book, right? Not a big key, but let's just use an example, like an Immortal Hulk. I don't know. Maybe this is a book. It's a good example. Like this Sinister book, you could probably snag this for $50 near mint, but that's not the case anymore. In $50, and you dice roll it, and if you got a 9.8, it was $400. But now those gaps are starting to close. There's still a bigger gap, but I've noticed that a little bit more now, is that raw books are starting to become more price aligned, depending upon, you know, the grade guess. But that's just my opinion. Love to know your all's thoughts on that as well. Next up here, this is another book I always see. This is another high grade copy, but I love this. I pick this up all the time. Unfortunately, the spec for this particular one I think has died. But I've got Nova 1 here. Richard Pryor, I want to say. I don't know why I don't know that. But either way, first Nova. I love this book. I just love this series. I've got the full run of the series. I've got, I don't want to say quite a few, but I've got a good amount of the number ones. And I was able to negotiate this one pretty well too. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to snag this. Now this next one here is a decent copy as well. It's not a 9.8 candidate by any stretch of the imagination. But I've noticed this one started to teeter off a little bit. It kind of blew up when the MCU was talking about mutants being introduced. And then it's kind of started to plane out some. But we've got Uncanny XMen 266. First full Gambit. You know, the argument, whatever rages on. But this is the Gambit that has the sex appeal. So therefore, it's the first full Gambit. But yeah, it's a high-grade copy. There's no doubt about it. Beautiful book. I love getting this too, but when you can. But these raw are pretty pricey still, even still. But I mean, a 9.8, it's probably still a $1,000 book, maybe $950 in a 9.8 CGC 9.8. But still, I like to get these in the wild. And when the guy was able to work a bundle together with me, I was like, man, I got to pick this up. Now, this last one is a character that I believe tremendously in, and I'm definitely biased because I love the character. And I would love to see him on the big screen. I feel like he's got multi-movie potential as far as I think that he could do it. I think the character's written well enough to do it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it will ever happen. I wouldn't sit here and tell you that. I couldn't comfortably sit here and say, oh, you gotta buy this book because it's gonna blow up. It's gonna be on the big screen. You may see him on the big screen, but this guy ain't getting his own trilogy or anything like that. I wouldn't think. But I love this character. One of my absolute favorites. We got Hulk 1. Red Hulk, baby. Cover A. I am a huge Jeff Loeb fan. Oh my God. Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale. I love The Long Halloween. I love those Batman books that they wrote. Man, absolutely beautiful. And I am a huge Jeff Loeb fan. And this is Jeff Loeb in all its goodness. I love this cover. Love this character. And why not get the variant as well? Both of these are in top loaders. This one's pretty crispy. This one is definitely not a 9.8 by any chance of the imagination, but that other one's pretty crispy. But I was able to walk away from this deal, I think, really, really well done. I want to say I got tremendous value in these books, but it's always up for debate. You know, but I do think what helped me was it getting to the end of the show, me having cash in hand, and the guy maybe didn't have as good of a day. I don't know, maybe the stars aligned, but I still felt like I got a great deal. I felt like he really was a great dude, and you know, who I worked with at the show anyway. But I'm always interested to hear your thoughts on this, you know. And I guess I'd end this video by saying, you know, normally I get all fired up, motivation and all that, but in this one I want to say, you know, I've seen a lot of, you know, like some of the pricing on the books. You know, people talk about what LCSs do. Can you take them to the counter? and then they price them at the counter, which is fundamentally wrong. I don't disagree with that at all. I think that you definitely got to have your stuff priced, but I also believe in the spirit of humanity, right? Of being a good person. You know, I'm a big believer in karma. I'm telling you, your investment and how you conduct yourself is probably the greatest and most important investment that you can make as a person, because it does come back around. I cannot tell you enough. A lot of bad decisions I've made have definitely come back to hurt me, and that it always comes back. But you know, so it's always a good thing for me to build the karma meter. Like, I'll take a book, like I found like an Immortal Hulk, or first Immortal Hulk, sorry, Avengers, I think 687, in like a back issue bin. It was like $3, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was crispy. It was a 9.8 candidate. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind this thing was a 9.8. And I still have it, actually. I don't think that's the one. It may have been the one I sent to CGC. I've got a lot of books at CGC sitting like a lot of people, but and I could have just gone up there and said, hey, it says $3. Yep, sell it to me. But, I don't know. This is how these people make their living. This is how these comic shops make their living. And yeah, they're not all great people to deal with, and not all shops are the same. But, my approach on those situations, and I'll take that book up there and I'll say, hey, man, look, you've got, this is a key. This is definitely not $3. This is probably a $60 book. You probably should price this accordingly, or, here you go, or, I'd be willing to buy it from you, but I could meet you halfway or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. I just point those things out because we're, at the end of the day, we're all people. We all make mistakes, and that's the biggest thing. Like, as far as when I mentor or coach somebody, I always tell them, like, the first thing out of the gate is, man, I need you to mess everything up and make it just. I mean, we got to make it such a mess that we've got to figure out how to fix it. It's so bad, because when you're making messes and you're making mistakes, that means you're actually doing things. But it's also important to know that, everybody makes a mistake, and it's all fixable in the end. So, I mean, for me, I'm like, I'm not going to beat that over the drum. I'm not going to stand on a high horse and say, hey. But I understand both sides of the argument as well. But I figured I'd leave you with that little tidbit. Catch more flies with honey, as they say. And the company man is just all honey. That's what it is. It's all right now. Anyway, let me know in the comments below what you thought of this pickup. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me, doing all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff you do. Let me know how wrong I am about some of my speculation picks. You can roast me, it's okay. I love talking to y'all in the comments. I still respond to every single comment, and I appreciate those of you that take the time to do so. But I got to get the heck out of here. You guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. Wink Inc, W1NK, INC. That's it for this one, and I will see you all on the next one.